Hi and welcome back to the Mum Drum. I'm Amy Fellman.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Haidt.
And today on the show we're chatting with Renee and Stevie. Renee and Stevie describe themselves as two mums battling postnatal depression, one coffee at a time. They have come together and formed a deep connection based on their mutual struggles and have since built a community to support other women going through similar journeys to their own. Renee and Stevie, so awesome to have you here today chatting with us on the Mum Drum. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We would love to start, before we get into your individual journeys, just by hearing about how you guys first met and what really connected you.
The love story. Okay, tell us about it.
Okay, all right, our love story. So basically, I'd moved to a small town. I knew no one. We had to move there for work. And basically, I just did a little bit of Facebook posts to try to find a community of mums. So I was 34 weeks pregnant, I think. So new to the area, pregnant, knew no one, jumped on Facebook, started chatting to some local sort of mum groups. And I noticed that Stevie had popped a little comment on there, and I did it. I did the old Facebook stalk and thought, she looks like a lot of fun. She's pregnant. We look like we're around the same due date. Mm-hmm. And I creepily went in and sent her a little private message, and that's basically how the love story happened.
We had a little blind date, like a little pregnancy blind date. We were like, I'm the pregnant one, me too. And then from there it was just, really nice.
Yeah, that was our little love
Friendship
story.
Blossomed.
Fabulous. That's great.
An instant bond.
And our boys are 2 weeks apart too, so it's been really nice for the boys to connect and
be forced best friends.
And when you first met, was there something about your openness or your willingness to share with each other that kind of really solidified things early?
Well, back then, I think we more so had a phone relationship. Mm-hmm. We had all these plans to go and do like pregnancy yoga and walks on the beach, and I think we just ate a lot of food instead, to be honest. And I remember our second meetup that we were meant to have, I, being an open sharer person that I am, I was like, sorry, I actually can't meet up today for lunch. I'm actually in labour. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, that's okay. Like, why are you messaging me? I'm like, I'm not dying. I'm just in labour. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm all good. Mm-hmm. So I think we didn't really have... The connection didn't really start for us until the boys were born. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just a little friendship, and then it just blossomed and morphed into this really strong bond that we've got now. So, yeah.
So, Renee, can we then start by hearing a bit about your personal journey? Yeah. So, you experienced sort of depression during your pregnancy that wasn't picked up.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
So, at the time, I had no idea. I kept using the words, and sometimes still even to this day I use the same words, that I'm trapped.
Okay.
So when I was pregnant, I couldn't wakeboard, I couldn't surf, I couldn't climb a mountain, I couldn't bungee jump. I had a very extreme lifestyle before I was pregnant. Mm-hmm. So when I became pregnant, I couldn't do all of those things that made me me. So that was a real struggle, and looking back now, I think that's when it all started. And I remember specifically saying in my antenatal classes to one of the midwives there, I don't have a connection. I know that I've got this ginormous belly, and I was absolutely huge, but I have no connection whatsoever to this baby. Everyone else in the class was like, like singing to their little baby and their little belly, and I was the one that was like accidentally hitting the car door on my stomach because I had no connection. I didn't. Like, I was hopeless. I had no connection. And looking back now, I think that's when the disconnect started, was when I was pregnant. So, and it didn't get picked up at all. That was sort of like can someone please tell me if this is normal or not? Right. And they were like, oh, that's fine. Some people do, some people don't. Mm-hmm. But I wish that someone would have gone, hang on a minute, let's just look at this a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But they didn't.
So were you ever asked any questions by your health professional in pregnancy around how you've been feeling and looking at whether you might be experiencing any distress?
No, nothing. Definitely afterwards, yes. Like every appointment that I went to after, yes.
Yeah.
I swear they had like a questionnaire that I had to fill out every single time. But during,
You were never
nothing,
asked. Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Was it confusing for you? Because we're not often thinking about what happens in that pregnancy antenatal period, and everybody expects us to be just so excited,
Radiant.
radiant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it confusing? Were you kind of going, well, I'm different to other people, but
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not sure.
when I first fell pregnant, like all I ever wanted to be was a mum. Like actually, I read a post this morning from 2015 on my Facebook saying, another year, another Mother's Day where I'm not a mum, and I still get emotional about it because all I've ever wanted to be was a mum. And so when I fell pregnant, I had witnessed a lot of my girlfriends, because I was one of the last of my friends from school to have a baby. A lot of them had gone through miscarriages, and for some reason for me, I just thought that was going to be on the cards for me. Even though I'd never fallen pregnant before, let alone had a miscarriage, I just did not want to be excited about being pregnant because of the thought of losing a baby.
adjust.
It was so weird. I had never experienced that, but maybe seeing my friends, I had this in the back of my mind that I was going to have a miscarriage.
That it could happen.
Yeah, and I told my mum and dad, don't get excited, don't buy the baby anything. No one was allowed to be excited for me. It was really odd.
So did you feel alone during that time? Because you said you reached out, or you put it out there, so to speak, hoping that someone would explore it with you, pick up on it. But that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think I just thought, oh, well, this is just how it's meant to be. As you do as a mum, I must just be feeling the way that I'm meant to feel. So I think it was just pushed aside by others, and I was like, oh, okay, we'll just push it aside then. 5 months later, we shouldn't have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get to 5 months later. So during that time, there was no help. There was no sort of name for what you were experiencing.
You thought it was normal.
Yeah.
And everyone else was telling you it was normal.
Yeah.
So what happened 5 months later? What was the event, or what led you to say, actually, something is wrong?
Well, I think, the whole baby blues thing where you cry. So I had to have injections for 6 weeks after for a Clexane injection or something to help with my blood.
I had the same thing.
It was so stupid. I was like, I'm fine, but okay.
Okay.
So I started crying every afternoon at 4 p.m. because I had to have that stupid injection.
Okay.
So I thought it was that.
Right.
So I'm a person that if there's a problem, I put a reason to it. So I was like, oh, that's the reason. And then it just sort of continued. The injection stopped, but the crying continued. And, that newborn stage, everything's just a bit of a fog. And I think, once Fletcher was 5 months old and the fog had lifted, so to speak, I was like, whoa, this is really real, and there's no escaping this. And then the fog just sort of came back in, and the fog didn't lift for another year and a half. It was nearly 2 years that I battled through the struggles. So I don't know what happened. Do you remember what happened?
There were a lot of excuses made,
oh yeah, that's right.
Renee and Fletcher didn't make it to Roman's first
birthday. She always talked. I feel so bad.
And just little things we'd really both plan to let's just get out today. Let's just go for a little walk. Oh, actually, I can't today, whereas Renee was someone, even though she was feeling that way, she almost needed someone to pull her out of it.
Yeah.
We were toxic. We said this.
We
were toxic for each other.
Toxic friendship for the first year because we weren't quite understanding where we were both at too. And it was funny. She did need the lifting out.
I
of
needed
it,
someone to drag
just
me out of the house.
to stay put and just try and figure out what was going on. And so we couldn't really help each other.
We couldn't.
Too.
It's an odd friendship, but look at us now. But I would ring, or I'm so sorry, Stevie, I can't today. And because she understood how I was feeling, she's like, it's okay.
I get it.
I understand. Where I needed her to go, no, I'm coming around. I don't care if I have to dress you. You're getting out of the house today. Where I didn't have that from Stevie. But I needed that.
Yeah.
But we were just trying to, I guess, understand each other's problems and be there and not push each other and not push buttons that were already sensitive, I guess.
Yeah.
There were a lot of excuses of
Yeah.
not catching up or not doing this or not making it to an event or
First birthday party. Or brushing my teeth or brushing my hair or getting dressed or eating. I got down to 47 kilos. I just didn't eat because I just didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel enough. I just existed to exist. So it's pretty horrible. Yeah.
So, do you mind if I just ask you a bit more about that, just to get that sense of sort of what you're experiencing day to day? Like, what kinds of things were you thinking? And if you're happy to share?
I'm an oversharer. If it's going to help someone, I'm more than happy to share my story. But basically, I'll probably get a bit upset, but that's all right. I didn't want to live. I wrote my letters. I had a plan. Which actually had flaws in it, which actually really makes me mad because I should have had that better.
But you're not thinking straight. You can't think properly.
Exactly,
when you're really
exactly.
depressed.
So, yeah, I just wanted it all to end. And even now, I sometimes get these messages from our Mum Hub Collective followers that message in, and they're like, I feel so silly. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. I just feel so stupid. And there were times where I remember I was sitting out the front of my house and there was a green ant and it bit me. And I had this thought that I was on a green ant's nest and all these green ants were just attacking me and I ended up dying. Like, this is the weird stuff that I used to think of. And, the lady that reached out and messaged me and said, this is what I'm feeling. I'm like, it's okay. Like, I know you sound like a crazy person right now, but it's okay. Like, we all have these sort of thoughts. Obviously, some of them I wasn't acting on, which was good, but at least you're reaching out and you're asking for help or, getting clarification that other people have thought these crazy thoughts before. So, yeah, I was just thinking just really weird thoughts, ways to escape, because I just kept feeling trapped.
Yeah.
So it was just, I was like fantasizing, a lot of fantasizing about escaping. And yeah, like my husband would get home and he'd say, sometimes the lights were on but no one was home kind of thing. And then sometimes he'd get home and he's like, I did not know what I was walking home
walking into. Yeah.
And I remember Stevie came over one day and we both cried because she's like, Renee, I don't know if my best friend's going to be alive tomorrow. Like, yeah, it was so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible.
So you got through it.
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah.
How?
I guess I have that personality where you just don't give in.
Okay.
Thank God I've got that personality because if I didn't, I think it would be a very different story. So I just got that courage and that strength from the people around me. Somehow they just had a hold on me, just a little by like a little thread. And I tried everything. I went to doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists. I hated the fact that I was on medication, but I went, no, I obviously need that at this point in time to just clear the fog. I went to healing retreats. I tried like a naturopath. I tried acupuncture. I tried everything, cognitive behavioral therapy, like just everything. I just did not want to give in without knowing that I gave it a good crack. Yeah. But I'm so grateful that I did. Like, I look at little Fletcher now and we have such an amazing bond, and I just know that, I'll never get that time back. So I just need to make like the most of everything now.
And you're still here now, and that's something really precious to celebrate. And and what a journey you've been through, and amazing that you have come through the other end.
It was a horrible time, but as horrible as it was, like, it sounds weird, but I'm really grateful that me as a person with the personality that I do, I had that to be able to help others. And that is my goal and my aim in life, is just to help people not experience the depth of what I did. Like that, I was rock bottom. I remember I rang a doctor's surgery one day and said, can I get an appointment, and he specialised in postnatal depletion. And they said, it's in October 18th. And I said, I'm not going to be here by then. Like that, it was rock bottom. But now I just know that you know, that's why I'm here. Like, I'm here to help other people and to spread the word and, you know, stop that stigma of, you know, not talking about it. We're here to talk about it and to make it okay.
And that not talking about it, do you think that, so you had the period during your pregnancy of feeling stuck and isolated. Do you feel like if that had been picked up then, that the trajectory of what happened afterwards might have been different?
I don't think, you know what, I think it probably would have still happened to some extent, but I don't think it would have been as bad. It would have been managed. And I'm a planner. I've got, you know, I'm a list girl. I need to know where I'm going. There needs to be goals. So if that was set, it would have been, I think, a different story. But I think it still would have happened, but just not to the level that it did. So,
are you back wakeboarding?
No.
No,
but I feel like I have got a lot more of myself back.
Yep.
I just,
Slowly
Fletcher's
bringing
at a
it all
different
together.
age now. Newborns are boring for me. Like, that's just my personality.
Yeah.
Where Stevie was like, this is so great. Like, look at them. And I'm like, move. Like, do something. Do something. Yeah, just totally different personalities. So, no, I will be. I will definitely get back to my adventurous life.
Yeah.
Just right now, it's, you know,
When you're ready.
Fletcher and I and making up for lost time.
Yeah.
Nicole, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, you've got so much experience working with women who have been through similar journeys and experiences. So, can you tell us a bit about how?
So how does Renee's experience? Absolutely. Look, we know that depression is very common in pregnancy and even more so in the postnatal period. So we know that in Australia, up to 1 in 10 women will experience depression in pregnancy. But it's very common that we put the signs and symptoms down to just being part of pregnancy or just being part of having a baby. It's just the hormones, it's just this, it's just that. And I think it's interesting that you didn't get asked any questions by your health professional in pregnancy, which is what national guidelines recommend, so that we can identify these conditions early, but also not just the identification and to get treatment, but also to educate you at the same time about what is this? You know, what are these symptoms that I'm experiencing? And actually it is part of something else and there is treatments available. You also described, Renee, you know, very common signs and symptoms. So that fog, people often talk about that fog and that heavy feeling, not being able to have the capacity to go out and do something or meet up with each other because you just don't have the energy. How it affected your thinking, having quite bizarre thoughts and negative thoughts, and that continuing on to the point that you had very negative thoughts, even to the point of there seemed like no way out, and you even thought of self-harm or suicide. And this is, unfortunately, we know that in around 74% of cases, women don't get help early for anxiety or depression until they reach crisis point. And unfortunately, when you do go to reach crisis point, you couldn't get an appointment when you needed it. So that's why we need to be talking about these conditions so we can identify them early, the signs and symptoms, we can put a name to it, understand that it's no one's fault, it's not a bad reflection of me as a person or as a mother, and having the confidence that you can get through it, and the different types of treatment that are important. So, you know, obviously with quite severe depression, you needed to look at medical treatments or medications. All the treatments and talking therapies in the world are not going to be able to be effective if you have that moderate to very severe depression.
You can't think straight.
If you're in the fog,
absolutely.
it's hard to participate.
In the same way as if you had diabetes, you need to get that managed with insulin before you can walk to whatever to do the next thing. So we need to replenish our bodies with whatever it needs to then benefit from other treatments or begin the recovery process. So unfortunately, Amy, you know, Renee's experience is
Textbook.
fairly well common, and at different points people get help. You know, sadly, you know, it took so long before you get help. Sadly, you didn't receive the information in pregnancy, which could have, you know, stopped that going to the extreme that it did go to. But, you know, that's why we're having these conversations now, so that we can raise awareness and really get the message out there and make people realise that these things are common. Yeah, 1 in 7 women will have postnatal depression, 1 in 10 in pregnancy. So
2 of us here.
you're not alone. And there's lots of other mums out there who will be going through something similar, but they can't necessarily put their finger on it because they haven't heard the information to say, that's what I'm going through.
Don't have the education.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
How do you identify the difference between baby blues and postnatal?
So that's a really good question. So the baby blues is technically it's that period just post the birth. So usually before the 10 days after birth.
Okay.
And it's very much the shift in hormones.
Yeah.
It's feeling teary and emotional, but it passes on its own. Just needs support and understanding.
And short too, like only a few
Very
days
short period
usually.
of time. And it's really just the teary and emotional feelings. Whereas depression wouldn't be diagnosed till at least usually 4 to 6 weeks after birth, when other things have settled down. Also, there's a wider range of symptoms for depression. So not only the way you're feeling, so often feeling teary and emotional, but also other behaviours like lack of interest in things, not going out, not being able to get through the day. They're symptoms of depression. The way that you're thinking, having distorted thoughts, looking at everything in a very negative way, it affects your thinking, as well as your feelings, feeling negative, not feeling any pleasure, not being able to get any joy out of anything. So it's a much more complex range of thoughts, feelings and behaviours, as opposed to baby blues, which is short-lived and really just that overly emotional feeling which goes away on its own.
I've got you. Don't worry.
No, we get a few,
I'll be looking out
we
for
get
you.
a few mums message us just saying, I don't know if it's the baby blues or if it's postnatal.
Yeah.
And we always just say, like,
Go and
we're
speak
not the
to
professionals, but
the GP.
please
Yeah.
go and speak to your GP or someone, because you can help prevent.
And it is misunderstood quite often. I've even come across people who 6 months later they're
the
very
baby
depressed,
blues.
saying, it's the baby blues, because we've heard about the baby blues. Everyone's telling us that's normal. 80% of women experience the baby blues, so people are putting it down to that.
Once again, it's the education.
And looking at everything in the context of where you're at. But often, certainly if it's after that 1 month period and those feelings are sustained, it's more likely to be depression, postnatal depression.
Good question.
Very good question. And we're talking about language around these kind of issues and how that might help women in terms of the baby blues. There's often not a lot talked about anxiety. There's been a real focus more so on depression out there. So, Stevie, I know you were diagnosed with postnatal depression, but looking back on reflection, you feel like you experienced anxiety during your pregnancy and probably in the postnatal period as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
I definitely think I had signs of depression, and I recognised these things quite early because I had suffered in my teenage years with depression and anxiety too. So, but I think the anxiety has always been something that's a little bit more full on in my life. Even to today, I still suffer with anxiety, but have learned to kind of maintain it and manage it. And I think because I am very aware, and I'm not someone who, like Renee, was in denial for a long time. And I have been lucky to have a lot of support around me too, to help me.
Like your mum.
Yes.
That was really, really...
my mum suffered with postnatal depression and probably anxiety with a few of my siblings. And even before any of us had children, she was very open and talked to us about that. So I could understand the signs a lot earlier. Yep.
And just for our viewers, can you describe for us what anxiety feels like?
I think my biggest thing was not being in control of anything in my life. So looking back, I did suffer with it. During my pregnancy, I had a really good job with my own business and was quite unwell, and I had to finish up, move interstate, move home. I wasn't working, and that even being the main thing where I wasn't in control of my life. It wasn't in control of finances and being able to work and organise my day. And similar to Renee, I'm very I work by
appointment, pretty much.
Yeah, with my business, but I work by checklists basically, and so that really got me. My dad was actually one who noticed a lot, and very similar to this pregnancy too. When I had to do the same thing, finish my business, my dad was probably one of the first people who reached out to me and said, "I can see the same thing happening." And just going into once my son was born, there were a lot of changes early into when he was born too that I just couldn't grip my hands on and just be in control of the whole situation. That was really hard for me, not as a controlling person, but I think for my own life to find that balance too. Yeah.
So how did it change you? What were you doing differently?
Oh, it was very overwhelming, and I felt very stuck, like Renee had said. But I was almost at the point of self-sabotage and relationship sabotage, and just nothing was going right. And if it wouldn't go right, I had to try and figure out a way, and it usually wasn't the right way around it. But trying to get that clarity in my mind, how I used to be able to do that. It was a real muddle because I just wasn't, that's the main thing that we can think of is just I wasn't in control.
And you were up and down. Remember
I
how
had very
like the
high
figure
highs,
of 8?
very high highs, and I was very heightened at times, and everything would seem fine, and then my lows, it would just get too overwhelming, and that's probably when the depression side kicked in too. But it was I was very good at hiding it because a lot of the times I was very heightened. And then it would just get too much, and then it would just kind of
She'd just like retreat like back home, and you're like, oh, she's having a low.
Well, it's exhausting, isn't it? Because you're trying to control everything and manage everything. So anxiety absolutely can be exhausting. Plus when you're pregnant, and it can be absolutely exhausting.
We also felt like sometimes when you did go and see your doctor or psychiatrist or psychologist, sometimes you'd feel a little bit somewhat silly going there because mine was like a figure of 8 as well. I'd be like, top of the world, I'm dying, top of the world. It was it really was that figure of 8. So sometimes you'd go to your appointment and you're like,
I'm not so bad today.
I feel so silly being here. And you'd sort of leave and you're like, well, that was a waste of time. And then another time you'd be in your real low and you think, why can't they just come to my house? I can't even get out of the house, let alone go to an appointment. Like, can someone brush my hair? Like, it was, the really figure of 8. We both had that. And we were talking about this. Stevie was here and I was at the bottom of the figure of 8. And then we'd swap and it was bad. Like,
so when one of us were feeling really good, the other one had a down day. Or we just couldn't.
We had a weird relationship.
It's incredible, isn't it? How your friendship maintained and did
Evolved
support
from
each other through that, in spite of those differences.
I'm just so lucky to have her.
And so, Stevie, can I ask, were you asked questions around emotional health during your pregnancy?
Yes. So I had a very good GP. Even to this day, she's still very supportive. Always checks up on me. Always asked. I was lucky to have my parents too, my mum especially, my GP. I was with a program after Roman was born called, I don't know if you have it here, Sustaining New South Wales Families, where we have...
Sounds quite New South Wales specific.
Well, I don't know if they have Sustaining Families anywhere else, but basically a community midwife comes, usually they come to your house the first, I don't know, month or something. She would come to me for the first 2 years.
I was so jealous.
6 weeks she came weekly, the first 6 months fortnightly, and then every month up to 2 years. So she would be checking on my child's health, weight measurements, but also would sit down with me. It was a 2-hour appointment and would go through everything, how I'm feeling, would pass on referrals. If I had a sore back, would refer me to a physio, would refer me to psychologists. I went through separation with my partner at the time, would help me with family counsellors and things like that. So that was a really great service, great support that I'm really thankful for.
Did you have that though because they acknowledged that you had?
Yes. Yeah. So prior to, I think about 6 weeks before Roman was born, they actually came around. I think the hospital, your initial midwife appointment at the hospital, they always talk about how you're feeling, and they kept me kind of in the red light zone and kind of watched me through my pregnancy. And then at the end they said, yep, let's meet up with this organisation or this community group, and supported me all through there, which was amazing.
I think this is a really interesting point, because New South Wales actually, when it comes to it around screening and assessment, is probably now the lead state. So it's probably the only state that most universally does screening antenatally as well as postnatally. Otherwise it's pretty hit and miss in the other states, particularly antenatally. It's also important that, you know, the screening covers not only looking at whether you might be experiencing symptoms of anxiety or depression at the time, but also your risk. And you indicated a number of risk factors. So, for example, you talked about having a family history of anxiety and depression with your mum. That is a risk factor. The fact that you personally had experienced anxiety or depression, that is a risk factor. The significant changes to your life, so the change in your job and your identity, that is a significant risk factor. So all of these things are part of that assessment to identify, hang on, this lady's at risk and we need to put the supports in place. So it's important that at a health professional level and as a system and a government that we're identifying the risk, but it's also important and empowering for women to understand, am I someone who is at risk? And what supports can I put in place or services can I access? But unless you know that stuff, you don't really know if you are at risk. And that's why screening looks at both your risk as well as developing the symptoms.
And I think especially with this pregnancy, from going through what I had been through too, I'm very open about it. We're both very open about our feelings. And so if I'm having a bad day, or even if I had a bad day 3 weeks ago and I met up with my GP, I'm saying, this is what's happening. I want to be able to voice that, because I know how it has been. Even before pregnancy, my teenage years, I didn't want to go through that. And this time around, my doctor said, look, I think, you know, you're still at high risk of going through the same thing this time after. And she's looking at plans to put in place.
Yeah, putting things in place.
So you've come together fighting postnatal depression one coffee at a time.
And anxiety.
But we don't actually drink coffee.
Don't tell anyone that. Don't tell anyone that.
No, definitely.
But this leads us into the Mum Hub Collective. Because you came together basically to help other mums. You were saying before, this is now your passion. Help other mums, support other mums, reduce stigma, and encourage real conversations. So tell us about the Mum Hub Collective.
You go, Stevie.
Okay.
This is your moment.
Well, originally it was actually just for Renee and I to get out of the house. And we just thought, what's something that we could do, just something that we both enjoy eating. We went to cafes and then we thought, well, we have to bring our boys. This
We have to bring them. We have to bring the
We couldn't
boys.
leave them at home at the time. And then we found, you know, cafes we were going to didn't have a ramp for prams, or didn't have enough space for prams, or parking
Change
wasn't near.
tables.
Yeah. So we just made our Mum Hub Collective page as a cafe review, basically just for us to review local cafes that were mum and bub friendly. We got a little following at the time, which was nice. And then we started doing little posts about how we were feeling. And
Real talk.
And it was again
called?
mostly just for us, I think, to like a diary for ourselves, just to look over it and go, this is how we're feeling that day, we feel way better today. And then we started getting more people started following us and, you know, voicing how they were feeling. And
well, thank you so much. Like, I'm
was so
feeling
real.
exactly the same as
I'm
this.
not alone.
I'm not alone. Like,
And then we had a meet-up, which we didn't know how it would go. It was probably the first 6 months or something.
We thought we were going to get about 30 people to it. I rang the restaurant or the cafe and said, look, I think there might be 30 people.
We had 120 women turn up with kids. And
we were just so overwhelmed.
Just
we were
for the fact
okay
that
on the
they
day.
knew about us and wanted to support, but also, you know, walking away, we had women, a group, I remember this group of women came to Renee, there was about 6 friends, and they all said to Renee, they all said, we had all suffered and none of us knew, and we've been friends since high school.
And
they
all
sat in the group that day and just talked
and
about it.
talked about their experiences, and they were like hugging each other, and they're like, you know, our friendship is so much stronger and we know more about each other. And it was just, I was okay on the day. Like, I was like, yes, I'm so good. I'm holding it together. And then when we got home, I cried and cried and cried. Like, it was so empowering and so
just rewarding, even just
it
knowing
just
that
felt so
people
nice to
were-
help.
Yeah.
It just, yeah.
And people don't need to go through and suffer like you both.
Suffer in
feeling like
silence.
they're the only
Just-
ones.
Just tell us. They don't have to tell the world like we do. Just, even if they want to just message us privately and say, you know what, I wanted to lock myself in the cupboard today while my kid watched ABC Kids for 5 hours. We're not going to judge you. We're not there to judge.
So what are your plans for the Mum Hub Collective? What's next?
Well, I had a shower thought, as you know,
They're the best.
all entrepreneurs do, just in the shower. Bing! I want to create a website, a directory that has all of the listings throughout Australia for mum and bub friendly cafes. So first of all, I want to start off with cafes. The worst thing is when you're in Melbourne, you've got a 3-year-old kid who likes to throw the sugar around the cafe and you're looking around and there's hipster cafes around. You don't really feel comfortable going into those sorts of cafes. They're great when you don't have kids. So in that listing, it will have, you know, prams, if it's easily accessible by a pram, like parking options, food options, whether they're your dietary stuff, so gluten, dairy, vegan, vegetarian, all that sort of stuff. And then change tables and high chairs.
All the practical things
all the
that
things
parents
that we
need to know are there.
And it's not just for mums, it's for, you know, if the dad, you know, wants to go on a little dad date, then, you know, they can jump on the website and have a look. Or grandparents, just anyone, making their life easier. Because when we had the postnatal depression and there was no change table, for me, that was the end of the world.
Overwhelming.
It was too hard for me to get out of the house. And then I had to deal with that. To someone who didn't have that mindset, they would be like, we'll just chuck them in the back of the car, it's okay. But for me, I was like, this is why I don't go out. See, it's too hard.
Yeah,
rah,
and you
rah,
feel
rah.
like you're not wanted. Like, in a way, there's an unspoken language that you're not welcome here.
Yeah, yeah.
The reason that we I guess in the end chose cafes is not because it is because we love eating out.
It's
but
true.
also the fact that it's so easy for a woman to call her girlfriend, meet at a cafe,
community.
talk over a coffee and just talk about problems. And that's what we really wanted.
Yeah.
So to have something like a directory like this where, you know, a woman is really suffering and just says, I just need, or her girlfriend says, meet me here, we need to get out of the house.
And we know that this is a safe space. We can go there. It's got all the facilities that we need. It's not too hard basket. And like, so at the start, it will start with cafes, and who knows, down the track, it might morph into, you know, hair salons. Because the worst thing is when you want to get your hair done and little Jimmy or little Sally is sick and they can't go to daycare, and you have to take them to the appointment and you feel like you can't, then that's, like, we make enough sacrifices in life as parents. I'm not sacrificing my hair appointment. So just trying to create that feeling of, it's okay, you're welcome. You're welcomed here. This is a space for you and your bub, or even if you want to leave them at home, you know, you can, with a carer, you can
looking after them.
you can you know, you can go there. It's about making you know, the local cafes as well. They're supporting local people. We're supporting local businesses. We're going to do meetups like the first one that we did where we had 120 women. We do them maybe quarterly. So, you know, if a cafe wants to have a meetup on a Wednesday afternoon from 2 till 3, because that's a quiet time for them, they can pop a thing up on Facebook. We can pop a thing up as an invite for an event, get some women there, and, you know, make a little community event.
And it's all about building the village, isn't it? Which, of course, is a protective factor and about, you know, making us feel connected and making us not feel alone.
Absolutely. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think that's
No?
been a fantastic insight into both of your stories, and it's so wonderful how you've come together for such a lovely outcome.
Totally.
It's ended up
Is there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, and you have an impending birth as well, so it's all
Yes.
really exciting.
I'm living my life through Stevie.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my child, but not actually. It's kind of weird, but no, it's not.
The village. It's the
The-
village.
yeah.
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 So, anything else you might like to share with our viewers? You know, any advice, pearls of wisdom?
Just if you wanna follow some real mums that, you know, don't clean the room before they take a photo. You know, we take photos of our children wrapped around our ankles while we're on the toilet. That's us, you know, we're real. So if you're feeling, you know, like there's a lot of Instagram mums out there who look the part. I mean, yes, we've got makeup on today. We went all out. We may have woken up like 4 hours early. But if you want to follow some real mums who just tell it how it is, and you know, we can be that safe space for you. You don't have to, like I was saying before, you don't have to tell the world about your struggles, but please don't suffer in silence.
Or pretend they don't exist.
We're here. Don't ever disregard your feelings. They're important. They make you a better mum. If you're not okay, then your relationship with your bubba and your partner, whoever it might be, you're not going to be okay. So yeah, you're number one. And yeah, I'm a very, I guess, selfish person when it comes to that, but I can be now. You know, I had 2 years of postnatal depression, and I'm never going through that ever again. And I'm here now to help other people, and I am going to be selfish and put myself first and my emotions, because I need that to be okay for Fletcher and my partner and Stevie, and look after her with her little bubba as well, and make sure that she's okay during this period in her life as well. So yeah.
Yeah, same as Renee. I just think that it's really important to be, not everyone is an open book, but I think even just journaling those bad days and taking it to your GP and saying, this is how I've been feeling, or just telling someone. You don't have to tell everyone, just tell one person, and it'll be safe, but at least you can get the help that you need. It's so important.
Renee, Stevie, thank you so much for chatting with us on the Mum Drum today. Your generosity, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks. As always, we have some great information for you about perinatal depression and anxiety on the COPE website. And you can find this at cope.org.au. And of course, we cover all of these issues in the Ready to Cope guide to pregnancy and early parenthood. So be aware and informed, and sign up today at readytocope.org.au.
As always, I want to thank Renee and Stevie again for coming on the show. Thanks all for watching. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Mum Drum, where we chat to more mums about how they navigate this beautiful chaos of motherhood. See you next time.
Bye.